Matt always talks about, this is his favorite passage. And this is probably one of mine. And the reason is this was probably the first hint of preaching that I ever did. 5th grade, we were doing, it's a Happy Christmas. What is it? Wonderful Christmas, Charlie Brown? It's Charlie Brown Christmas. That's it. And I was Linus, and I had to memorize this passage. I no longer have it memorized, so I'm going to read it to you. But this is good stuff. You've probably heard this somewhere along the way. So in those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria. And everyone went to their own town to register. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and the line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. Let's pause here for just for a moment and see one of the things that we can take away from this real quick. And that is this, and you've probably figured this out. Life happens while you're making plans, doesn't it? You're thinking, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and then something else just interrupts it. And suddenly you've got to adjust. And you might get sad, you might get mad, but somehow you have to kind of figure out, okay, what are we going to do now? Here's Joseph and Mary. I'm sure, like for Joseph, and he's gone through the whole thing. Mary tells him she's pregnant. She tells him, an angel visited her, and it's not some guys. It's going to be God's baby, and he's like, But then he gets a visit from an angel in a dream. Says, yep, this is all happening. So now he's adjusted his life. Okay, I'm sure he figured out this is how we're going to roll with it. This is what we're going to do. And then down comes this proclamation. The Romans who are occupying their land want to do a census. Why? For taxes. How many people are living there? Who are the adults? Whatever all the stuff they want to collect. And you got to go back to your family's home area. So that's where Joseph's got to go, and he's got to go to Bethlehem. Stuff happens in our lives. We think we know what we're going to do tomorrow, and we don't know what's going to happen between now and tomorrow. What news we'll get? Good news, bad news, we don't know. And so it's helpful for us to have an attitude that says, you know what? What I want to happen may happen, but something else may happen. And I will trust that the Lord is with me in that next step, that different step I have to take. So one there in Bethlehem, it says, while they were there, the time came for the baby to be born. And she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths, and she placed him in a manger. A manger is basically a feeding trough. No little crib. He's got to lay in a feeding trough because there was no guest room available for them. So the connection here is this. Why is he in a feeding trough? Because they are with the animals. What are they doing there? Now, you've probably heard this in a number of ways. We probably all grew up with, there was no room for them in the inn, right? So they show up. This is the story we all kind of get. They show up. It's Christmas Eve. They've been traveling all night. They're wanting to check in, and there's no vacancy, and the best that the innkeeper can do is send them to, maybe it was a cave, a shed, something. That's where they're going to go, to a stable of some kind. Closer look at the word there means probably there's no room for them in the house. Now here's how the houses were constructed in those days in that place. So down at the lowest level, ground level, was kind of a little barn, the stable. That's where you kept your animals safe. You brought them in. And then people lived in the upper levels, and they slept up there. And so that's most likely what has happened to them. They may have found probably some distant cousins and say, can we stay with them? Yeah, but we've got no room. You can sleep down in the stable. And one of the things I want to take away from this is that Jesus' appearance challenges our priorities. So here's the thing. When I heard that and saw that and read that, it was kind of a little easier to take, the poor innkeeper, what's he going to do? He's made deals with all these other people. But then when you find out, there were some relatives saying, yeah, you can sleep down there. They didn't look at this young pregnant woman and say, oh, we've got to make some room in a bedroom. Let's get her a place where she's going to give birth. No. They said, that's all we're going to do for you. Aunt Martha, Aunt Bertha, Aunt someone, Uncle Harry, whatever, they're not giving up their room. You get this. Somebody wasn't willing to make room for Mary and Jesus. Let that sink in just for a moment. Someone wouldn't make room for Jesus. And that's the question I want you to think about. When Jesus comes, when you begin to encounter him and what he did and his teachings, you have to decide, will you make room for him in those teachings? Will you let him enter your heart, enter your mind? Will you rearrange and reorient your life to him? Or will you say, I got some space for you, but it's not priority space? And we do that a number of ways. We say, some people will say, Jesus, I'll give you Christmas and Easter. Some people will say, Jesus, I'll give you a month. I'll give you a Sunday a month. I'll give you a couple Sundays a month. Jesus, I'll give you every Sunday of the year. I'll go sit in a chair. I'll endure a sermon. I'll lip sync along to some songs. I'll do that. But you know what you can't have, Jesus? You can't have my heart. You can't have my will. You can't have my strength. You can't have my mind. If we're going to follow Jesus, we have to be prepared to let him move in and begin to occupy the places in our heart, in our mind, in our hands, in our feet. I want to take you just to a place in Matthew chapter 8. Jesus is grown now. He's got his ministry going. It says, when Jesus saw the crowd around him, so there's a crowd of people clamoring. Some people want to hear him teach. Some people, they want a miracle. They want a healing, maybe some food. And it says, when he saw the crowd around him, he gave orders to cross to the other side of the lake. Then a teacher of the law came to him and said, Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go. And Jesus replied, foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. Now, in that specific instance, what he's saying is something that is also true for us today, and that is following him may make us uncomfortable. It may lead us to uncomfortable places. So this fellow says, hey, I'm going to follow you, Jesus. I'm willing to follow you. Well, guess what? We're doing a lot of cowboy camping. If you don't know what cowboy camping is, you can have a tent. You think you're roughing it there. Cowboy camping is you just sleep out under the stars. That's what we're doing. That's how we're traveling. Are you ready for that discomfort? And Jesus may not draw you out of your house, but there will be places, if you choose to follow him, if you choose to serve him, that may mean that you will experience some moments that make you uncomfortable. Jesus said things. He prepared us for this. He said, if you want to follow me, pick up your cross. Now, a cross is a heavy thing, but a cross is also an execution tool. What's he saying there? Are you going to die to yourself? Are you ready to do that? He said things like, the first will go last. Stop trying to get the favorite spot and be willing to sit at a lower end of the table. Stop elbowing your way to priority and preeminence. Now, when we do that, that can lead us to discomfort. And we like our comfort, don't we? We love our comfort. But serving him may make us uncomfortable. Shortly after this, says another disciple said to him, Lord, first let me go and bury my father. Now, understand what he's saying there. He's not saying, my dad just died. Can you give me a day or two? What he's saying is after my dad dies, whenever that is, then. When my family, when I'm disconnected, when I don't have that obligation anymore, then I'll follow you. But Jesus told him, follow me and let the dead bury their own dead. Now there's a lesson here. That is this, that the perfect time for following Jesus, the perfect time for serving him rarely arrives. It rarely arrives. There's a kind of an old saying, maybe you've heard this, if we all waited in the perfect time to have children, none of us would be parents. If we said, let's wait till we have a house big enough, let's wait till we have enough money in the bank account, let's wait until we got that. No. Because we'll always find something else that we want to do, that we want to have. If we wait for the perfect time to begin serving him, probably none of us would. We want everything to kind of line up. We want to, let me get through that. Let me do that. Let me accomplish this. Then I'll give you me. But it rarely comes. Something else will come for us. And what we're told here with that is that serving him may not always be convenient. And like comfort, we love our convenience. We live in a world that is tailored to our convenience. We have stores we call what? Convenience stores, right? When you just run in and you can run out. There was a time, if you know your fast food history, the McDonald's Corporation came up with a very fast way to serve people, had a whole system for it. And you could go in and you could place your order and boom, within just a few moments, they give you your food. I worked at McDonald's in the 70s. And when I started there, I remember the things I learned. The system may be totally different now. I'm sure that it is. But there was a person, a supervisor, who stood in front of where the food was produced. So people would be in the back making the hamburgers, the different kinds of hamburgers that they had. And this person had a job to kind of anticipate how many, just little single hamburgers, how many cheeseburgers to have, how many Big Macs to have. I think we had the quarter pounders at that time. How many of those to have ready so that when you walked up and you said, I don't want this, that, and that, they could just go, they grab it, boom, 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 put it on your thing, and out you go. How convenient was that? But then someone said, what would be even more convenient? If you didn't have to get out of your car. And while I worked there, they introduced the drive-through. Now, it wasn't the first fast food place to do drive-through. But I mean, that then now everybody's got to do it. Why? Because the last thing we want you to do is have to walk. People who just cater to our convenience, and we get used to it. We get used to it. And so when someone offers up something that may enter into our inconvenience, we go, no. But something is happening to us with all of that convenience. I mean, how many of us have changed our shopping habits so that we can have something on our doorstep the next day? But we pay a price for that in interaction with other people. And then we wonder why we're all lonely and disconnected. And our society is like, because we've lost the ability to interact with people in so many ways. Now, some of you are old enough, you're like, no, I learned all that. Yes, but the people coming up below us who've just been born into all this convenience. And then we wonder, why are they so messed up? Why won't they do things? Because we taught them. We made this world for them. So we have to ask ourselves if we're willing to be inconvenienced for Jesus, for the sake of the kingdom, for other people. Serving may also include discomfort while we try new things. Let's go back to parenting. Let's think about it. Here's Mary and Joseph. Mary's, they're going to be parents for the first time. They didn't even have a book, What to Expect While You're Expecting. You remember that manual? And what to expect that first year. How they learned was the generations before them kind of prepared them for it. But one of the things people can tell you, but you don't know until you get there, is the discomfort that comes. Sorry, kids. I know it wasn't your fault. You didn't choose to be born. But we lose a lot of sleep when you all come along. There's a lot of discomfort that comes with being married, with having kids, with having jobs. When you're doing something for the very first time and you don't know what to do, that doesn't feel comfortable, does it? Now, some people thrive on that. Give me that challenge. Yeah, okay. A lot of people are like, and you get anxious, and you get a little sweaty, and I'm not sure what to do, and you get panicky. When it comes time to serving the Lord and finding that place, where do I fit in? How am I a part of His kingdom and to give the gift that He wants, which is myself? You may have to try some new things. And you'll feel uncomfortable. And that's okay. We have to learn to be comfortable with discomfort. Because if you do something for a little bit by bit, you become comfortable with it, with that new thing. It's okay. Say it with me. It's okay to be uncomfortable with new things. It's okay. I know some of you, when you walked in here for the first time, that was uncomfortable, wasn't it? We can do all sorts of things to make it as comfortable for you as possible, but unless you're one of those extroverts that just loves meeting new places and meeting new people in new places, you're probably like, what's going to happen in there? Especially if you don't have like a big church background, you don't know what we're doing in here. You walk in, we lock the doors, we start, sacrificing lambs or something. You don't know. And so it can feel uncomfortable. What if people don't like me? What if they look at me weird? We probably will. You'll look at us weird. It's just human interaction. But if you give it some time, you make the connections, you get the rhythm of things, that discomfort goes down. So when we talk to you about serving, like we're doing during this series, you may think, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with trying some of that stuff. There's only one way. There's only one way. And that is to try it. And be okay with feeling uncomfortable. All of this need for convenience and comfort has trained us to expect more from others in exchange for less from us. Think about that. We tend to expect more from others and less of ourselves. More and more, we want the benefits of life without any strings attached. We want intimacy without commitment. We want pay without much work. We want acclaim without any real achievement. We want unlimited choices with limited consequences. We want likes without being likable. We want to be loved without being loving. We want justice without judgments. We want to be obedient without being inconvenienced. Too often we want heaven, but not its king. We want to be used by God, but only on our terms. But not Mary and Joseph. They said, may your will be done. May it happen as you've said it would happen. Their service had its demands on them, but rather than run away from them, they ran toward them. They embraced them, and not for their glory, but for God's. Not for their benefit, but for ours. But here's the thing, if you'll make room for Jesus in your life, in your heart, in your mind, serving can bring joy and bring community into your life. The Apostle Paul, quoting Jesus, said, it is more blessed to give than it is to receive. There is something about when we give of ourselves, when we do something that blesses other people, that is positive, that contributes, we feel something inside of us that nothing else can bring. And when you serve, and if you get to serve and connect with other people, you can make friendships that will enrich your life. On the night before Jesus was crucified, after the Last Supper, Jesus, we're told, he got some water, a basin of water, and he got a towel, and he got it down, and he began to wash the disciples' feet. And this scandalized them. But he did this in response to something that had happened earlier. Two brothers, James and John, wanted to be, when they knew things were getting close. And everybody's assuming Jesus is going to come in, he's going to appear, he's going to be accepted as the Messiah, he's going to be crowned the king, and they want to be, hey, put me on your left and put me on the right. These are positions of power that they want, and authority. When the other disciples heard that they were trying to elbow their way through to those top spots, they were all mad and indignant. So Jesus showed them another way. And he washed their feet. To say, look, stop trying to be served. Start serving. Here's what he said after that encounter with them. We read in Mark 10, for even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Serving is the way of Jesus. If you want to live in the way of Jesus, you have to embrace serving, because that's what he modeled for us. And if we're following him, we have to include serving. Now let me just be clear here for a moment. That can be here within one of the ministries of the church, and we'll hear more about that in a moment. But it can also be out in other places. Okay, this isn't just about, trying us to fill in slots. This is about us all learning that if all we do is take in and never give out, something happens to us. We are not being properly formed in Christ. We have to be willing to embrace serving in some place, in some way, not so people can applaud us, but so that other people can be blessed. And if we can do that, we begin to grow even more in our faith. And that last thing, Jesus came to lay down his life as a ransom for many. That's the cross. That's him dying there to ransom us from the penalty and the power of sin. And we remember that every time we take that little piece of bread and a little cup of juice that we do every week to remind ourselves why we're here this morning. We're here not just to get a pep talk and sing some Christmas carols. We're here to worship the one who is worthy of our worship. The only one who is worthy of our worship. And so in just a moment, we invite you. Take that bread, take that cup, and remind yourself that Jesus served you through his death. And now he invites you to follow him and include in that finding a place to serve. Will you pray with me? Our Heavenly Father, I thank you for this moment in time that we have here as we focus on the birth of Christ and we think about the different people who are a part of that story, a part of that history, and how they made themselves available to you. And we can learn from them what it means to also follow you. Lord, I pray that the songs that we're singing this morning, the Bible verses that we're looking at, this moment of communion, of remembering Christ's birth or Christ's death as well as his birth, will help us see what it means to be in you, enwrapped by Jesus with his love, with his death, his burial, his resurrection, as we fully trust in that and let you lead us into where we go next. I pray this now in Jesus' name. Amen.